Muy buenos días con todos. Reciban un fraterno saludo desde la presidencia del Consejo de Ministros. Esperamos que
You all, we really wish you a very good morning from the uh, uh, presidency of the Council of Ministers. I'm Eloy Munive, and I want to give you a warm welcome to today's presentation of the OCDE study of integrity in Peruvian regions. As the OECD has expressed so well, um, to to be able to fight corruption, you need to mainstream this struggle, this fight, and these methods across all the government entities. And integrity is fundamental to achieve an efficient management of all government entities and to foster the well-being of the populations. So we have to act as local, regional, and central level in order to benefit the whole population. So now we're going to start the protocol part of this event, and I am honored to introduce this first panel. I will give the floor to Mr. Florian Theus, Head of Cooperation of the German Embassy. Please, Florian.
Muy buenos días a
Thank
todos.
you, Eloy, and good morning, everybody. Both in Europe, the OECD, as in Peru, and I would like to say hello to Mr. Edgardo Edgardo Cruzado and Mrs. Paola Bustamante, Eloy Munive, Jeffrey Jagenhoff, Deputy Secretary of the OECD, and of course, the regional governors of Ayacucho, Cusco, and La Libertad, and all the panel members. And in representation of the German Embassy in Peru and the Federal Ministry for Cooperation and Economic Development, the BMZ, I would like to welcome you um, to today's presentation of the study about integrity in the Peruvian regions and how to implement the system. First of all, I would like to recognize the effort of the presidency of the Council of Ministers and the regional government to foster the implementation of the concept of integrity in order to prevent corruption at all levels of government. As Eloy said, we have to mainstream this concept. I also want to thank the OECD for its important contribution to this study that we have also been able to support from the side of the German technical assistance in Peru. I have been many years in Peru and I have followed its path to comply with the OECD standards under the leadership of the Council of Ministers. Since the first study about integrity in Peru of 2007, for example, the policy and the national plan for integrity and anti-corruption, and we also have a secretariat of public integrity and several other entities in the state that safeguard integrity. And nowadays, Peru has tools to solve all kinds of conflicts and tries to promote the struggle against corruption in the country with all means possible. Of course, there is still a long way ahead. And as you know, corruption in Peru is still the main problem in the country for the Peruvian population. This has been seen in the public debate in the last years. So the Peruvian society is the one that is most concerned about corruption at regional level. This is something to take into account. However, during the past year, we could see that in the whole world and also in Peru, the effects of corruption were even worse, were made even worse by the pandemic, even in my country. So we have to act together. The governments of Germany and Peru have a long history of cooperation and the fight of corruption, and both at national and regional government levels. For example, through the GIZ, Germany is supporting some key processes such as the formulation of the integrity plan at regional and national level. And Germany has just approved a loan of $120 million, million euros through the through our development bank in order to help Peru in its fight of corruption. And Mr. Schlagenhauf, this study of the OECD that we are going to present today is very timely in its publication, because it will tell you how anti-corruption is advancing at the regional level. So we not only have in Peru now a national level of anti-corruption, but also a fight for integrity at regional level. So I'm very pleased to see that we have several regional governors in this meeting. They have made great efforts to improve integrity in the regions, and we hope that the public entities in Peru will make progress in promoting an integrity culture and in its and management models, so that we can make continuous progress in the struggle against corruption. So I hope that we will have a very interesting event today. Thank you very much. We thank Mr. Florian Toys for his kind words, and we will now give the floor to Mr. Schlagenhof, Deputy Secretary General of the OECD. Please go ahead, Mr. Schlagenhof.
Many thanks. Buenos dias in Lima. Dear Ms. Bustamante, Mr. Cruzado, Mr. Teus, Mr. Muniva, distinguished panelists, dear friends. It's a great pleasure for me to launch this new milestone in our close cooperation with Peru on public integrity together with you today. And let me apologize that I cannot deliver my remarks in Spanish. That said, this fruitful partnership started years ago under the umbrella of our OECD country program, which included an integrity review. This review was first to apply the 2017 OECD recommendation on public integrity and establish a coherent integrity system in line with OECD standards. Indeed, it is this process that enabled Peru to officially adhere to the 2017 recommendation. Building on this solid foundation, we have worked together with the German Development Cooperation to support Peru in fine-tuning their institutional integrity offices. They're considered a regional good practice to help mainstream integrity policies and cultivate a culture of integrity in the public administration. Effective implementation and sustaining impact is a major challenge, and we congratulate Peru on the progress that has been made to date. The report we are launching today addresses a further challenge: how to improve integrity at the subnational level. And it is important, Subnational governments are responsible for spending a significant amount of taxpayers' money and for delivering key public services to citizens and businesses. They are the interface with citizens on a daily basis and have a great influence on trust in government. Today, they're also at the front line of the COVID-19 crisis management and recovery. However, we know that the COVID-19 crisis has exacerbated fraud and corruption risk, which can severely undermine the actions of subnational governments. Integrity cannot be put on hold. On the contrary, it is crucial to ensure that subnational governments can deliver with transparency and integrity to ensure a sustainable, resilient, and inclusive recovery and safeguard citizens' trust in public institutions. Let me just add, this is not something unique to Peru. This is an international challenge. So in this, Peru is not alone. Peru's National Plan of Integrity and Fight Against Corruption 2018 to 2021 emphasizes the central role of regional governments in mainstreaming integrity throughout the country. Indeed, subnational specificities call for contextualized integrity policies that reflect the particular needs, capacity constraints, and priorities and risk of each region. Peru has already instituted regional anti-corruption commissions, and now regional governments are required to establish an integrity function. While ensuring the implementation of both the commissions and the integrity function is a challenge due to resource and capacity constraints, this setting also provides a unique opportunity to strengthen integrity systems and culture at the regional level. The report provides clear, specific guidance for implementing the integrity function in regional governments and the strategic involvement in the regional anti-corruption commissions. The OECD stands ready to continue supporting Peru on this path. We trust that the new government-elect will continue efforts to build an integrity culture throughout the country to prevent corruption and fraud, to strengthen citizens' trust, and to contribute to inclusive growth in Peru in the recovery from the COVID-19 crisis. I also take this opportunity to thank the German Development Cooperation for our longstanding and very productive cooperation in Peru. I believe this and other projects show the value added of working together to provide meaningful support to our partners. Thank you very much for allowing me to join you today, and have a great meeting. Thank you. The floor back over to you.
Damos las gracias a las palabras del señor
Thank
Jeffrey.
you,
Acto seguido
Mr.
voy a
Schlagenhoff. And now I will introduce our Vice Minister of Territorial Governance, Mr. Cruzado. Thank you very much, Eloy. It's a pleasure to share this panel and this space with Jeffrey and Florian. And I think that this first panel shows exactly what we want to achieve. That is, it highlights the political will at national and regional level to fight for integrity. Integrity in, within public governments is a central issue, not only to foster development, but also to face the effects of the pandemic and to fight for a future as a society and also as for the whole planet. As I said, public governments and territorial governments, that is at the start of this creation of the Vice Ministry of Territorial Government, is the start of a reform. It's a reform that will go ahead through all our governments, and we believe that this reform will be always with us in this country. And for us, this is linked directly to the public governments in a very diverse territory as the Peruvian one is. So public governance and the decentralization go hand in hand, and the presence today of Mr. Carlos Rua, the chairman of the Regional Government Council, and also the Council for Decentralization and a Good Public Government based on integrity and citizen participation is not possible only from the national government or from the regional government on their own. It has to be a joint effort because public governance is something that citizens and all the authorities have to work towards together. And this joint effort will help us to build an agenda that goes towards what is said in this report and all the documents about decentralization. The country can no longer accept the high levels of corruption we have seen in many cases. Corruption is something that delegitimizes the uh, the process of decentralization and representation and governance that responds to the citizens' demands. In the same study, we have several cases of corruptions that we have to face, and the figures show us that we have to reorient the money towards our true motives and our true uh, projects. We are sure that we are going to work together in this. The study tells us about some specific risks. The problems of corruption are generated by conditions that foster corruption. The risk is not born out of decentralization. It's not a case of decentralization fostering corruption. On the contrary, the citizens are much closer now to their government, and the mechanisms can be much faster in order to um, counter and struggle against all the corruption issues and install prevention as a key element in this process. And the regional governments that are governors that are today with us are key actors in that sense. We have been able to make progress with these studies and with a set of reforms. Apart from a risk management tool, we also have several other instruments that allow us to fight corruption. And today it is part of our main agenda. It's a central axis in our government policy. And we have a variety of tools to attack and fight corruption. And we also have a very we have several means to make these tools transparent for everybody. So we encourage citizen participation and we encourage transparency, and these are the tools that allow us to work against corruption. And in this study, we have several issues that are related to integrity, to the integrity function that is in charge of our Secretariat of Public Integrity. And this function of integrity, as the study puts forth, there are a series of elements and um, key factors that will allow us to become a public administration that works closely with all levels against this factor. And well, I invite you to read the study because it's very interesting. You will find many challenges there. How can we coordinate our function of integrity from the executive power with a space that we have today that are these anti-corruption regional committees? we have to work in a coordinated manner. The study asks us to join our efforts, and it sets forth a series of agendas that go beyond our own government period. So during the transfer process to the new government, this study will be a very important element, a key element in ensuring that this policy is also enforced during the new period. I want to thank the efforts of the National Secretariat for Integrity, the regional government, the consultants that have gone to several regions to work on that, and the National Assembly of Regional Governments as a main actor, and I am sure that we can be that we have a clear agenda of how to go forward, and this is something that will stay with us, that will be enforced with greater depth in the next years. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Vice Minister of Territorial Governance. And in this first panel, we have seen the importance of fostering the integrity approach and in public government and in governance, and all this with the aim of safeguarding public interests. However, these key synergies are a key element for all levels of public management. We thank you all for this first panel, and I will give the floor to two specialists that will introduce us to the study made by the OECD, Mr. Frederick Böhm, OECD Public Policy Analyst, and Mr. Giulio Nessi, OECD Public Policy Analyst. Thank you, Eloy. Thank you and good morning in Peru. It's a pleasure to be with you today and be able to share these results that led us to, of this study that led us to know more about the circumstances in the different regions in Peru. I will share the presentation we have prepared. I hope you can see it now. Briefly, in order to remind you what the OECD is, well, we have 38 member countries. Costa Rica is the last one that joined us a few weeks ago. And fundamentally, the OECD promotes public policies that try to improve the economic and social well-being of its populations in many different areas, and it sets international standards for these public policies in order to help the countries on their way to these aims. We have a recommendation of OECD about public integrity from 2017, and one key element is that punitive focus against public corruption is necessary but not sufficient. Usually the focus was to detect cases and sanction them, but if we don't address the structural weaknesses, we will have this problem for a long time. It's like the Greek hydra. You cut off one head and it sprouts another one. So it's we have to create a proactive culture of integrity in order to prevent this. This is the recommendation of the OECD. And there are three pillars here. And they emphasize also the interaction between regional, local, and the national government, and the key role played by regional local actors. As we mentioned at the beginning, this study of 2017 led us to visit Piura and Ayacucho. And for this study, we were in Cajamarca and San Martin. And this helped us a lot in our work. We also had, of course, the support of the GIZ and several other institutions. And we had other projects in Peru, also supported by the Swiss cooperation. And in the OECD, we are very much interested and aware of territorial, of regional integrity for development, because corruption, for example, leads to problems in infrastructure, in public services, in terms of informal sector. That is a big problem in many countries. The issue about national and international private investment, and there is also the inequality and concentration of power that oftentimes leads to corruption, and organized crime also uses corruption to act. At territorial level, due to the closeness of public services and the expenses at local level, corruption is growing. And the efforts, also because of the health crisis, but also because of the level of services at the regional, public services at regional and local level, has made it necessary to have an effective response against it. However, in spite of this great diversity, oftentimes the integrity policies are not implemented or designed in a differentiated way. They are established at the national level and are implemented more or less at regional level. They are oftentimes ignored because they do not reflect the needs or the opportunities. But there is a great opportunity at that level, because this is where we see a visible change. We can see a visible change and impact for citizens, and it can show citizens the sense that public government can be efficient and can lead them towards development. And in 2019, we did a survey at regional level, and among the questions, there was one about the existence of structures or specific policies. And in both cases, Peru has these structures and the possibility to enforce these policies. And this is a base on which you can build. And based on this, the study also looks for to add some recommendations. And with this, I would like to pass the floor to Julio for the recommendations. Thank you, Frederic. Good morning, everybody. We want to greet the authorities present in this second part of the presentation. I will tell you about some of the findings and recommendations of the study that is submitted today. As Frederic said, although there is a legal and institutional framework that even reaches a regional level. There are some challenges and some areas for improvement in order to continue to implement this Peruvian model of integrity at the regional level. This diagnosis has benefited from the participation of key actors at national and international level. And we also had interviews with the National Authority of Civil Service and also with the Controller General or the Auditor, Public Audit Entity. This allowed us to acquire an in-depth view of all these challenges. And starting with these challenges that we see here in the report, I would like to, for example, tell you about decentralization in the report tells about decentralization in process, and this also improves the opportunities to adopt integrity policies at sub-regional levels. There is also, well, there are several, Peru has a very diverse territory, and this diversity leads to several opportunities or very diverse opportunities of economic activities, and we have to adapt the model to these different realities. Apart from that, there is a need for capacity development at regional level, and one other key element that is common to all regions is to improve the level of the staff at regional level. And as there is a high rotation of staff, there is a problem there because this hinders the continuous implementation of these policies. In general, we can also see some efforts in the report that were especially mentioned, but some specific policies also. And however, there are some areas for improvement. For example, according to a poll that was carried out at regional level, there is also a conflict of interests situation that hinders investment because according to the perceptions, there are some areas here that lead to corruption. Following slide, please. Well, we have to take into account these challenges and others that are in the report for applying the model and achieving integrity. And well, we have taken into account we have issued in the report some recommendations for regional governments to implement integrity. And we also have some recommendations, issued some recommendations for the regional anti-corruption committees that have been created in all the regions. And finally, this is also a key aspect. There is a key role for the national level actors to implement these recommendations. There are some areas for improvement here also. So starting with the first category, from the perspective of regional government, in the report, we have highlighted we have highlighted that this function of fighting corruption is mandatory, is something that has to be done by regional government by establishing priorities based on the risks and regional weaknesses. It's FODA analysis. And in this process of implementation, there is also the issue of capacity building and to set true priorities for the different regions. In this sense, we provided a model according to which the regions could focus incrementally, gradually, on priorities established and on some risks within the context, and from there take this as a starting point for an incremental process and arrive at implementing the integrity function in all its levels. Another key aspect that we highlight in this report is the role of the different government offices at regional level, because those are the levels of government that have to apply all these policies. They have to promote and coordinate and guide and support the enforcement of these policies at regional level and also in other areas in an incremental manner. So in these recommendations, we see that the authorities, the national authorities of public integrity play a key role by facilitating this enforcement at regional level, helping each region in developing its capacities and in establishing the key functions in which they would have to focus, and also provide a support for improving the role or highlighting the role of regional offices, taking into account the good practices that were developed at national level. So going on to the second category of recommendations, here we are addressing the Regional Anticorruption Commissions committees, and here we also were able to participate in some of the meetings in order to collect information, and we found a series of difficulties and also improvement needs. For example, we saw that the focus was very much on specific cases and not on the general issues or a general strategy. There is a lack of institutionalization. There are different rules for different instances in the region, and there is a lack of participation from the actors that should be participating, and the presence of technical secretaries that have other functions and well, they have other things to do and have to add to these normal functions, these anti-corruption issues. So we have also issued some recommendations that have to do with institutionalization of these spaces created, for example, from the national level, there is a possibility of increasing the support in terms of providing models and internal rules for procedures in order to help to structure the operations and focus these efforts on what the commissions should do. These commissions, as I said, usually focus on specific cases and not on strategic guidelines or strategic steps. So there should be, for example, an internal there should be internal guidelines that provide them with the possibility of appointing some alternative representatives that could participate at official level, but could therefore also help the technical secretariats in all their tasks. There are some relevant issues in terms of integrity. For example, in hiring policies, in policies for appointing public officers, and this is an area of risk. And it has also been noted by the OECD, and in general, the regional offices have a key role in this sense. And we can also now go to another key issue about the coordination between the levels would be the role of regional government that are represented at the level of the technical secretariat. And in our analysis, we believe that they could participate in all the commissions in order to help the decentralization of government and thereby lead to a role that is more specific for the CAN and the CRA. So they need specific mandates, and the competences of the tasks of these different levels or institutions should be clearly defined within the anti-corruption commissions, for example. And according to the analysis of the report, in the regions where the secretaries that participated in the National Commission also they replicate the policies of the national level in their regions. So it's very important to establish a strong relationship between the regional and the national authorities in this sense, in order to mobilize the support and visibility of regional officers as the representatives of the national government. And well, among the recommendations, we have the following points. To create awareness and strengthen the capacities of regional governors, to have better coordination at a national level, to strengthen the capacities. And here we have some specific recommendations for CANs and CANs and CRAs. And we should also strengthen the joint meetings together with the regional authorities And this was also something that came out of our study. And there is also that we identified here it is the possibility of introducing a system for regional monitoring and evaluation in order to establish comparisons. Because in other countries, we have seen that um, regional entities become more proactive and competitive in this area, and that their efforts be recognized at national level. So the regions that have improved the situation, their situation should be highlighted and well, pointed out in order to create awareness among the public. And there is also an issue of communication and awareness raising of the whole society, so that all citizens and the private sector can demand action from regional and regional government and the national government. This serves as a sort of reminder that citizens can demand anti-corruption action. So with this, I finish our presentation and give the floor back to Eloy. Thank you very much, Frank and Julio. You both have been leaders in developing this project. You have been part of the delegation together with Felicitas, and we congratulate you on the huge effort that was done and the on-site visits you have done in our country and gathering data about this, because all of this these are opportunities for improvement for our country and will derive in concrete actions. After this presentation, I will give the floor to Claudia González del Valle. She is a senior advisor in the Good Governance program of GIZ. And so Claudia will continue hosting this event. Thank you, Eloy. As Eloy said, I'm Claudia González del Valle. I'm a senior advisor in the Good Governance program of GIZ, and I will be honored to moderate this discussion panel that tries to promote a dialogue about the study that was developed by OECD. I want to mention that we will have 3 blocks. In the first block, we will deal with the regional perspective. The second one will be at national institutions and civil society. And then we will have a reflection with Eloy Munive in order to summarize the ideas. I would like to welcome and introduce the governors that accompany us today. Mr. Carlos Rua is President of the National Assembly of Regional Governments, and also Mr. John Paul Benavente, who is the Regional Governor of Cusco, and Mr. Manuel Felipe Yempen, Regional Governor of La Libertad. And Mr. Altamirano from the regional government of Amazonas. We'll talk about the opportunities that are highlighted in this report. And in order to have well-ordered dialogue, I would like to ask you to limit your answers to 3 minutes. So we will start with the analysis of the challenges, and here I would like to ask Mr. Rua in order to present the point of view of the regional governments. What have been the challenges of the regional governments that are faced by the regional governments? Good morning, Claudia. Thank you all for this opportunity, and thank you to Mr. Benavente from Cusco and Mr. Emben for la Libertad. And I also thank the German cooperation for giving us the floor, especially for us, the regional governors. This is an issue that is very important, especially in the present situation, because we have to point out that for many years, corruption was very much talked about, but up to today, we haven't been able to really make headway in fighting corruption. If maybe it's difficult to eradicate corruption, but we at least we should try and make the effort. When we started in our function in 2019, we implemented the fight against corruption in our region, starting with regulations in Ayacucho, with new regulations in Ayacucho. We have we have issues to regulations in the sense that all public officers have to submit a declaration of their income and property. And we have issued the corresponding orders, executive orders, and we have signed an agreement with the General Controller's Office of the country, because we need a permanent support in the regions and also at municipal level, because oftentimes we can only act when things have when fraud or corruption has already happened. So we need help to implement the controls at internal and external level. And in the same sense, in almost all the regions, we have a participation at the National Anti-Corruption Commission. We are working with the Ministry of Justice, with the General Controller's Office, and here we are addressing as a region even our responsibility in financing the technical secretariat. We would like to say that it is very urgent to have a larger budget for the judicial entities, so that for the general prosecutor, so that there can be more action at regional level. We have permanent meetings, and it's a big problem because we have many instances of citizens denouncing cases of corruption, but we are unable to act properly and in time. And there are regulations and supreme decrees that say that the regional governments are responsible for administrative action. And some of us have been denounced and are even in jail. But I think that there should be an improvement in the processes, because it's some of the responsibilities are not regional responsibilities. We believe that we have to fight corruption together, and we need some legal mechanisms that help to defend the governors, because if not, we will have this problem. We will all have this problem, and we will create political instability in our country. And here, from the Assembly, we are promoting that in the situation of this decentralization of the country, they assign us functions, yes, but we also need resources to be able to enact these functions, to exercise these functions. and to exercise internal and external control for each project. Because this has been assigned to us as our responsibility. I want to thank you for this opportunity. We do have a plan in the National Anti-Corruption Commission. We have set up 5 provincial commissions, and we are involving the provincial majors in this because we have to go down to provinces and districts in order to prevent corruption. Thank you very much greetings from Ayacucho. Well, thank you for this comprehensive overview. We will have a first question about the challenges, and there will be more time to talk about the actions that are being implemented. Governor Benavente, we know that the regional government of Cusco created an Office of Public Integrity, and we would like to know a little bit more about this experience, about what the criteria were in order to design this office and what challenges have been faced. Good morning to everybody, to the organizers and participants in this forum. Well, fighting corruption means that we have to develop an integrity system. We have to assess the model that really is the best for regional governments. In our case in particular, what we have done is try to use a focus on inventories, because we have to have a more comprehensive focus in order to solve the problem. And it has to be based on 3 pillars. The Integrity Office by itself cannot solve the issue of fighting corruption when this corruption is already inherent to the system. And we also have to involve the regional agencies, and another pillar would be the lower levels of government. We would have to establish a new model of management based on reforming the regulations in order to incorporate this integrity office. It shouldn't be just there as a separate entity. It should be integrated in the structure of government. So the preventer is different. It has a different function than the controller. So if we have to generate a more efficient set of processes and also to create a greater transparency. And the best way to create transparency is to use our development agencies that are sort of directorates around the different areas of management. So when I want to hire somebody, for example, in the health sector, I will ask the College of Physicians in order to help us with that, in order to use specialized organizations and acquire greater transparency that is not really in the hands of all public entities. We have lots of regulations that are like that hinder our organizing public procurement and acquisitions. It's not only a question of organize our procurement according to the best price or the better quality, but these regulations close a lot of doors for us. The Integrity Office should make it possible to have help in choosing the best offers. And during the public bids. So the integrity model has also to be there on the other side. One of our big problems as governors is that we organize processes. We can hire directly in some cases, but we have a private sector of suppliers that is really not complying with due process. One example, one very brief example. We have bought a tomography machine in order to face the COVID issue. And we have contacted a company that is a world-class company. And they have asked us for 90 days in order to comply. And then they have asked us for another 90 days. And this brings problems because the sub-regional authorities are saying that we're not complying with what we have promised. So the system has to be articulated and involve the whole public management sector, from starting with the budget offices up to the public procurement and really of getting the services and products we need. This is to function also at the level of sub-regional offices and also with the development agencies that help us with our good governance and allow us to be more efficient. Thank you, Mr. Benavente, for this comprehensive view of process management that has its own challenges that could lead us to a better model of integrity. And I would like to give the floor to Governor Niempin. In the case of La Libertad, there is an interesting model. You have, well, you are the head of the Regional Anticorruption Committee. How do you supplement your regional offices, your regional measures with the National Commission of Anti-Corruption? Good morning, everybody, and I thank you for this invitation. I greet you from the city of Trujillo, the capital city of La Libertad. And the first thing we have to do when we start the regional government period is to make a political decision to create an anti-corruption policy that is compatible and that is shared with all the public officers and agencies. It should become official in the whole region and in all administrative offices. And it should also be communicated to the society in general in the whole region. And this is very important because we have to make the citizens aware of the main criteria that we are implementing towards fighting corruption. So in order to fight corruption at the regional level, we have to guarantee transparency and access to public information for all citizens. Therefore, when I started my government at the beginning of 2019, I issued a regional decree, a safeguarding measure for public interest in order to fight corruption at regional level. And we are trying to implement this at all levels of the society. And well, this document was signed before Susana Silva, who is the Secretary of Public Integrity and Anti-Corruption of the Council of Ministers. And I signed it together with all the regional officers and councillors that also signed the same document. And this strengthened our capacity of prevention of corruption cases. And so we started to promote a culture of integrity and public ethic among our government officers and the whole population. And we established a new budget that was that we explained to the population, and we organized 2 annual meetings for accountability before the citizens. And we have also installed and consolidated interest conflict management of public administration by following the example of the government of the national government. At the beginning of my governance period, I stated that which my goods were and my property was, our income, my wife's income, my children's income, my parents, my brothers and sisters. So we made it public and showed it to the citizens. And up to now, fortunately, we have had no problems with that. We have also strengthened the internal mechanism for denouncing cases of corruption, and we have also launched a program for public office career paths that are based on merit. And we set up the necessary institutions in order to fight any acts of corruption. We are also guaranteeing integrity for the hiring of for public procurement of goods and services, and we are focusing on the critical processes of this procurement system. We have to verify and examine all the documents submitted, especially the guarantees submitted, and this is giving us very good results. We do not have any works in process, public works in progress that have shown internal conflict. And in our region, we also have to reinforce the criminal justice system. It's very important. We are setting up periodical meetings with the maximum authorities of our justice system. We have to also reinforce the discipline system and the public prosecution, and also the system for recovering stolen goods or misassigned or monies that are lost. We have recovered, together with the police forces, more than 80%, for example, of the lands that were unlawfully occupied. And I congratulate the organizers of this event and the German cooperation for the support we are receiving. And I believe that we have to to turn it into a national policy that is applied in all regional governments. Thank you, Governor Rua. Well, Governor Yempen, it's great to hear you say so, because this highlights the successes obtained in implemented this national policy. If some of you would like to say a few words about new ideas of how to make these efforts sustainable, ensuring the sustainability, we know that the different governments, there will be different government periods, but just a few words, because we don't have much time left. Yes, concretely, I would like to say this process, for example, I forgot to tell you that electing the person responsible for our integrity office, which we call preventer and interventor, was taken in the framework of the coordination council at regional level, because we want to make the development agencies at regional level participate in this process. We want to ensure accountability, or public audiences are for accountability, and only in that way, with this participation, we will be able to improve governance and transparency and fight corruption, and ensure integrity at all levels. Thank you. I don't want to cut this short, but yes. Yes, I believe that there are several documents, or also legal technical documents that we have issued, and that serve to protect those people who denounce corruption acts in our territory. These are documents that protect whistleblowers, and as Mr. Yempen from La Libertad heads this commission, when we meet with the main actors of the prosecution authorities and the judicial power, the judiciary, we have to participate in that, because if don't allow the or don't protect, we don't allow whistleblowers to be protected, we won't have much help on that side from the side of the citizens. There are many issues that were denounced by citizens, and we have to assign human resources from side of the prosecution. And there's may there be some are there some final words? Yes. We have made La Libertad. We want to make La Libertad a competitive region offering quality services in health and education, and we are working towards the 17 goals of sustainable development. And we're working on goal number 16 for justice and strong institutions. And this is something we want to make sustainable in our region, applying all our efforts towards this sustainability. We want to reach this equality in all our region, equality of opportunities, and with that, we would be eliminating social corruption. Thank you. Thank you for this enriching dialogue. It was an honor and a pleasure for me to be able to talk with you. And now we will have a second block of the panel that will give us a national and civil society point of view. And to that end, I would like to present Mrs. Idalí Rojas, that is part of the Ombudsman's offices, Mr. Maximiliano Ruiz, General Secretary of the for Decentralization at the Council of Ministers, and Mr. Rota from Proetics. Well, the dynamic will be the same, and I ask you to turn off your microphones and to please give us your answers in 3 minutes. In this sense, we will start this block with Mrs. Idalí Rojas. We know that the Ombudsman's office has supervised the functioning of the anti-corruption regional commissions and has managed the findings of the study. And I would ask you to tell us about the critical aspects that have an influence on the regional cases. Good morning, Claudia. Good morning to all guests to this event. I would like to thank you for the invitation to participate in this event for this important study of the OECD that undoubtedly will set a milestone on our road towards greater integrity at public level. I can say that based on the experiences of the Ombudsman's office at regional level, this is a critical aspect to set up specific regulations for a regional level. We know that the National Anti-Corruption Authority did not provide guidance for the development at a regional level. So the regional and local anti-corruption committees have to follow the national guidelines, but these guidelines are not very specific. So this regulation deficiency has led us to very different development paths of anti-corruption policies in the regions, and it has even been an obstacle for its implementation. To give you some examples, we have followed the development in Apurímac, where there is no authority for that hasn't set up a specific regulation for anti-corruption. The same thing has happened also in San Martin and in other regions. So this affects their institutionality at the regional level. So the challenge to turn these national guidelines into regional institutions has to be secured by establishing clear guidelines and also regulations for the regional levels, how this should be set up at regional level and from the technical point of view, and among other aspects also. Recently, a few days ago, we received a report from Loreto that told us about the difficulties to identify officers that for the anti-corruption office, because the last time this commission met was in 2018. So therefore, it is very important to establish clear regulations, for example, about the need to submit a regional report once a year for the Anti-Corruption Commission at national level, and also this should be a report made public to society in general about what was done or what not done in order to implement the national guidelines for anti-corruption ensuring. So this is a critical aspect that has to be taken care of through a national regulation that allows for regional guidelines, specific regional guidelines. Thank you, Mrs. Rojas. This is a very important aspect to strengthen the institutionality of the regional anti-government commissions. I would like to know now about the point of view of the National Decentralization Office well, I would like to ask Mr. Ruiz, although decentralization has started a few years back, it's still a work in progress. And I would like to know if, or from your perspective of the Decentralization National Office, what should be the main measures for ensuring integrity in a region? So, thank you, Claudia. I would like to thank the Public Integrity Secretariat for this opportunity to talk about this issue. Also, the members of the OECD mission and the German Development Cooperation and the regional governors present here. First of all, when you talk about the decentralization process, one of the premises of the principles you are stating is that these services have to be closer to the citizens and provide greater opportunities for the regional governments to become more transparent in their actions. This is a premise that you have to base this process for the reasons explained on the regional level. But this is a path that we have started, but we haven't reached the end yet. And we all know that well, it's a multi-dimensional issue that integrates education, family principles, etc. Also talking to influencers, and influencing thereby the public opinion. All of this is something we have to take care of also at our secretariat. So we have to take this issue out of the government sphere. Maybe this is a first step. I'm not an expert in the issue, but I believe that, or we believe that we are concentrating too much on the government, and we would have to take out this issue from the government sphere. As Idalit Rojas said, how many sectors of the citizenship know how the mechanisms of accountability work? This is part of the effort. We have to educate the public. So, well, apart from these general principles that I wanted to mention, there's, well, in the Secretariat, based on the several reports, we look at this as something that has to be ensured at regional level also. And well, regarding prevention, well, we can review the different reports about fighting corruption at the institutional level. And we also have to focus on capacity development for all public and private actors. And going to more specific aspects, for example, we would have to strengthen the capacities of the government agencies at regional level. And we're also talking here about the higher authorities at regional level. And as was said by all the governments participating here, we have to exercise vigilance in order at all levels. So this is something that has to be done in all regions, and we have to prepare ourselves for that role, because we are not, well, we have many deficiencies at all levels. For example, at the first level of customer support for the citizens, and to understand that without taking into account your position in the regional government, you cannot take advantage of the citizens. We have to assess what is being done. And I'm very happy, for example, to hear about digitalization of procedures, the implementation of transparency platforms that really increase the capacity of prosecution and citizen vigilance and citizen control. And if you are at this first level of citizen support, you have to start there. And well, there should be some incentives. We do have incentives for regional and municipal governments. Sometimes there are issues, for example, about dealing with wastewaters or helping with anemia cases, but we should also have them for integrity measures. In this sense, we could maybe help them also for finding necessary budget means. And there are also procedural issues. There are some interesting experiences about these risk maps. And this is something that should not be hidden within the municipal archives. These should be known by the population, so that when one citizen has to start some kind of paperwork with the municipal or regional government, they know about that. Making public these risk maps and the measures that have been taken against that, or that the citizens have to take in order to avoid falling into any of these traps, is very important for the implementation, and it should be part of the regional and district action plans. And finally, in this task of integrity and prevention and anti-corruption, we should, and well, I mentioned it already, but I want to talk a little bit more about digitalization of the procedures and the mainstreaming of transparency as a main issue for all citizens and all offices, public offices. We have to be much more proactive and not reactive, and also more reactive, really, because it's not a question of being attacked in order to react, but you should act before, because we know that the citizens need to know about this. It's not a secret that people want to know about the mechanisms for hiring public officers or for public procurement. We all know about that. In these key issues, we have to invest in improving the conditions so that citizens know about all this, so that they can trust, acquire greater trust in their government, which now is very weak. Thank you very much. Thank you for this in-depth analysis of several elements that should be part of the agenda. There is a focus on management aspects of regional governments, but we should also take these efforts to civil society. And this leads us to the next question to Mr. Rota from the Pro-Ethics Society. Ethics Society, what should we do to improve anti-corruption levels, anti-corruption measures at the regional level? Thank you, Claudia. I want to greet and thank the organizers for inviting me to this event. I will try to be very brief in this. I would like to start pointing out that beyond the value of the report that was shared with us by the OECD, there is something that is lacking here, and that's the participation of society. Because when society appears, it appears as a passive actor, as an actor that is at the receiving end of campaigns for transparency, but and so it is automatically assumed that it will foster vigilance on behalf of society in general. And in these few minutes I have left, I would like to open the discussion about this point in particular. We know that successful citizen vigil or anti-corruption measures mobilize a group of citizens in order to defend their interests. And the second variable is that these citizen participation should have the possibility of really not only bark but also bite. Our authorities should lead to a change on behalf of the authorities. For example, there could be a modification in some aspects of public government that is affecting society in particular. If citizen awareness can change and can change what is being done and receive an answer from the state, this will be a success. What challenges are there in our country for this to become the normal situation? There are two big groups of challenges. The exogenous challenges, and here we could, for example, point out the possibility of accessing information. In our country, it's not a possibility, it's more a difficulty to access information. We have been pioneers in issuing regulations about access to information at regional level, but there are still many difficulties for citizens to have access and use information. for example, for the contracts about public procurement for public works are very difficult. You need to be a specialized lawyer to understand them. Journalists and the public in general, well, it's impossible to really understand them. And in this group, there is some resistance from actors that believe or that feel that citizen vigilance or participation is uncomfortable for them. And this has led to many many problems, including even the assassination of some indigenous leaders. The main variable, this is the main variable also, or there's another variable. People don't have time to acquiring the necessary skills to have access to information. There are very few people that know about the mechanisms of public management, public government, and they really, and it's very difficult to understand how a decision was made at public level. And this is a part of the endogenous challenges for society oversight. Thank you, Samuel. So for this very interesting suggestion about and the idea about citizen participation. Time is short, but I would like to ask for a second very short round. I will ask you to be very much focused on solutions and possible solutions. Idalit, well, you have also already mentioned about clear regulations as a keystone for improvement. But what would be a concrete proposal in case of Mr. Ruiz? What lessons learned could be applied here in order to improve the situation? And in the case of Samuel, what do we require in order to improve citizen participation? Because, well, we know what the challenges are, but we know now what the challenges are, but we need to know about the solutions. Idali? Well, thank you very much. From the Ombudsman's office, we agree with several of the ideas expressed by with the when the OECD study, for example, to create commissions at a regional level for integrity and some mechanisms to work. For the Ombudsman's office, it's very important to make public policies responsive to what needs to be done. We need clear guidelines and we need indicators. These kind of indicators will help us to launch the implementation of at a broader level. We have been working in a report that measures that measures the performance at regional level, and we would like to look especially at the prevention measures, and we want to measure three aspects. What measures have been deployed for the prevention of corruption, then the measures taken to punish, to investigate and punish the acts of corruption at regional level. And the third dimension that we have named the measurement of institutionality, that is to measure the capacities of regional governments to implement measures against corruption. And what do we mean about measuring this institutionality? How strengthened are the institutions, the judicial institutions, for example, at regional levels, and the possibilities of sanctioning the offenders. We believe that this is very relevant, and in that sense, we think it's important to make this public scene visible as one indicator of measuring the performance of regional governments and of rating it as good or bad. Thank you. Thank you for this proposal about rating the performance of public entities. Mr. Ruiz, some final words about or from your experience about implementing regulations at regional level. How could we strengthen the model of integrity at regional level? Well, one first thing that I think we have to solve is the relationship between the concept of a regional government as an investigating or a prosecution entity and as an implementing entity. I know about one case where during one period of government, there was a joint work and cooperation, but the next government didn't continue with that effort. So I believe there is a need of continuance of one being pragmatic. The action plans have to be realistic, of course, as Samuel said. We know about the limitations, but sometimes we want to do so many things simultaneously that we end up frustrated. So by identifying the risk maps in the processes and having concrete action plans and monitoring these action plans and disseminating the results, this would be a first step and a very important step towards this end. And finally, I believe that, well, the report is very detailed. There are a series of administrative processes that are carried out by regional officers, public officers, and usually the citizens have a complaint that this works very badly. And if you want to do things, because there are many complaints about this, you have to face corruption, and there is a great level of impunity. There are no sanctions for corruption. And if we focus on this type of things and we incorporate them in the action plan of the Regional Commission, we would show that we could make progress, that we are able to do so. We cannot highlight, we don't have success to show to the public, and or if there are any successes, success stories, we aren't able to really highlight them. Thank you, Mr. Ruiz. Samuel, just to close this block and thanking you for your participation, what would be your final words about reinforcing the role of civil society and other actors that are out of the government sector, maybe the private sector or the academic institutions. Yes, I would like to mention 3 points to do a follow-up of what I said before. Information is key, and here there is a strategy that goes from the top to the bottom and the other way around. From the top to the bottom, we have to inform the public how these management instruments work and how the decision-making process works in order to improve the skills of the citizens. But this has to be supplemented with a bottom-up strategy that is, well, from another strategy to make these documents easily understood by citizens. As my colleague said, all these processes for hiring somebody or for public procurement are too complicated. They have to be explained in simple words. And the framework is one of a lot of mistrust. So the only way of overcoming this lack of trust is to have clear key roles. And one of these rules should be that if you denounce somebody, if you you see that the infractors are really punished for that. And on the other hand, I believe it is necessary when we view this report at a higher level, we should strengthen the public integrity authorities at all levels. And this is not a critic. It's very valuable work, but they need more skills, more resources, or even set them up at a higher level so that we show that Peru is really aware of its crisis of integrity. So a response has to be a very strong response from all levels of government. And here I end my comment. Thank you, Samuel, and thank you all for this very fruitful exchange of opinions. We have had here representatives of the Council of Ministers, of the Ombudsman's offices, and of civil society through Proetica. And so in order to close the panel, I want to have some final reflection from the Secretary for Public Integrity of the Council of Ministers, Mr. Munive. I would like to ask you what the opportunities are that are highlighted in the report in order to favor the implementation of the model of integrity in the regions, and what measures are there on behalf of the Ministry of the Council of Ministers. Your mic is off. Yes, thank you. I will be very concrete because we are reaching the end of our seminar. This is a very important document for us because it puts forward a series of opportunities that can become public policies and therefore concrete actions. Peru has shown a commitment towards fighting corruption. We have gone through processes of evaluation in different commissions, and at the national level we have put forth a national strategy focused on the regions in order to set up regional anti-corruption commissions in order to promote the dialogue between the public sector and the entrepreneurial sector and civil society, and also with other institutional offices. This integrity this challenge of integrity has been taken up by 3 regional governments, and they are setting up a series of actions in order to promote integrity in the regions. The integrity model points towards consolidating the preventive capacity of public institutions, mainly at regional level. And this model consists of a series of guidelines that are based on standards and points of reference. And we have to improve capacities and ensure the good performance of public officers. And of course, we have to contribute towards public welfare by a good procurement of goods and services in order to respond to the trust based on us by the citizens. So, well, there are these anti-corruption commissions at regional level, and the special entities were already mentioned, and the special measures were also mentioned by the representatives of regional governments here. For example, the mechanisms for transparency in public procurement and also accountability. These are key mechanisms that promote integrity. These tools were developed by involving citizens as key actors. All these measures, for example, that have been presented here, make it accessible to citizens, make it transparent to citizens, and promote the participation of citizens, not only in accountability, but also in decision making. As citizens participate actively by proposing ideas and promoting agreement. And the work that is being done at decentralized level that had also counted on the support of different international actors such as the German Development Cooperation, USAID, and the OECD. I would like to also point out that last Tuesday, the High-Level Anti-Corruption Commission had a session where we met with the main authorities for anti-corruption, and we decided to strengthen the national anti-corruption, the regional anti-corruption measures, anti-corruption commissions. We have to give them more elements and more tools that are based on experiences at regional level. We have to profit from all these innovations that have been suggested and involve the society. And well, I don't want to add anything more because we're reaching the time limit. I want to thank all our panel members and all the representatives from the German Development Cooperation, the OECD, and the higher authorities of the country. Thank you, Eloy, for these final reflections. And going towards the end of this event, we have the honor of welcoming Mrs. Paola Bustamante, the Secretary General of the Presidency of the Council of Ministers, and she will close this event. And so I would like to ask Paola to close this event. Good morning. Thank you very much, Claudia, for your introduction. Mr. Deputy Secretary General of the OECD, Mr. Well, the representative of the German embassy, their authorities, their panel members, and that have supported us today and analyzed and set up an analysis of the situation in your country. Dear public officers, I thank you very much for your presence today, and I would like to start by thanking also to the governance section of the OECD for setting up this report for strengthening public integrity in our country. We have a very good relationship with the OECD. This helping us in leading our in implementing our efforts for integrity in this government. We started in 2017 by with some guidelines of the OECD in this sense, and that same year we set up the high-level anti-corruption committee with participants from the public and private sector and the academic sector. We came to the conclusion that we had to extend our efforts to the regional levels by taking into account the recommendations of international and national entities. So this helped us to find some common principles, the need to develop a coherent system to promote integrity culture and an effective mechanism in order to fight corruption. And this was done in the year 2018. Our country has made progress in establishing higher standards, and there is a greater awareness of conflicts of interests in the public sector, and strengthen the mechanism of control and whistleblowing. So we have focused on ensuring the compliance with regulations that ensure the integrity of public officers by ensuring the help of all public institutions. And we want to gradually strengthen our integrity approach to public functions. And this was done with all public authorities at national level, in the executive power and beyond the central government, with the participation of several sectors. And as a first balance, the OECD was incorporated Peru among countries making efforts to reach a higher level of integrity at government level. And we are now reaching the second phase. It's a continuous improvement process. So the regulations established in the National Plan for Integrity, we have to strengthen the level of our intervention at all levels of government in the country. And here we agree with the measures proposed in the report issued by the OECD at the three levels of government. As was pointed out, the function of integrity has been implemented in 3 regional governments, and we are providing more support to the regional anti-corruption commissions. And we have to develop a more active role. And so in this sense, we found very interesting, we found the proposals made by all participants in this event very interesting. And as Eloy mentioned, we had just had a meeting at a high-level National Anti-Corruption Committee, and in which we incorporated new measures to strengthen the role of regional commissions and strengthen also the ties to the central government in fighting corruption. Finally, I would also like to point out that our commitment towards integrity in the public sector is very strong, and several sectors are trying to set up higher standards for creating value in this sense of the public sector. And in managing a series of issues derived from the pandemic, we have tried to uphold the principles of integrity and trying to reach the bicentenary of our independence by implementing the best practices suggested for our interaction with the private sector and with citizens in general. We want to show the will of our country to turn these good intentions into public measures and really implement them and increase our standards. I would like to thank on behalf of the presidency of the Council of Ministers, to thank the OECD, to also the German Development Cooperation, and the Public Integrity Secretariat directed by Eloy, and all the institutions that have helped us in these efforts. Thank you for accompanying us on this path. Thank you, Mrs. Bustamante. And I would like to ask all the authorities and panelists if you could turn on your screen so that we could have a picture of this event. Please tell us when the picture has been made.
Parece que el secretario Maximiliano, ahí está, ya lo arregló. Muy bien.
Muchas gracias. Apenas tenga la toma,
Thank you
por favor.
very much. Can you tell us, please, when the picture has been made? Okay. Thank you all. It has been a pleasure to meet with you. Thank you. Good morning and have a good day.
Hasta luego, cuídense mucho.
Thank you all.